Hey friends, with the War Within finally upon us, I wanted to take some time in this video today to talk about what is unlocking when, what I would choose to prioritize during each of the different stages of the opening weeks of the War Within, and what I think is going to be the best way to gear up your characters throughout each stage and what to really focus on. So starting today, August 22nd, the early access for the War Within will be opening. This will be available if you have purchased the Epic Edition of the War Within, and a lot of things are not actually going to be open today. So if you didn't purchase the Epic Edition, you're really not going to miss out on that much. The main thing that I would be focusing on during this time, there's three main things that I would be focusing on. First is going to be leveling your characters. This is an opportunity to spread out your leveling over a few days before the real quote-unquote launch of the expansion. And I would invest a lot of time in leveling whatever characters you think you're going to be most interested in playing. And then second, I would definitely want to focus on completing the initial campaign quests through all of the zones. Historically, all of the campaign quests have been required to unlock open world content, which is going to be something that's important through phase 2, or through the full release, all the way up until raids and dungeons start really unlocking. So I would focus on those two things primarily, and then I would spend a little bit of time focused on professions, especially gathering professions. If we are allowed to gather materials, the sooner you can gather those materials and get them in the auction house, the more gold you're going to be able to make from that opportunity. So that could be something that fuels your early raiding, your early chances of buying BOE items off the auction house. Although those may be less impactful, we'll have to see how everything shakes down. For the early access and until the full release on August 26th, I would really be focused primarily on leveling my characters. August 26th will be the full release of the expansion. This is where anyone who bought any edition of the expansion will be able to access the new content. And along with this, on the first reset, heroic dungeons will be unlocking. This is when you want to be focusing on leveling your remaining characters. If you didn't have early access, you'll just want to focus first on leveling your main character and then whatever other characters you want to play. You'll be able to get gear from heroic dungeons, so you'll want to run those, and that may end up being the best way to get gear. We don't really know what the full slate of rares and all of the shenanigans that we were doing at the beginning of Dragonflight is going to look like in the War Within yet, but you'll definitely be able to get gear from heroic dungeons at this point, and you may be able to get some gear from open world stuff. You probably will be able to. Other things that I would focus on during this stage would be leveling up your professions all the way. The weekly profession quests will open on the first reset. So starting that Tuesday or Wednesday, if you're in the EU, you'll be able to start unlocking your profession knowledge and leveling those up. This is also when I would start renown farming. You want to get as much reputation during this time as you can, so that once more in-game content is open later, you don't have to spend as much time catching up on those. If you are able to get a lot of renown in these first few weeks, there will probably be some sort of world content that you want to do, whether it's just the weekly quest. World bosses will probably not be open yet, but you'll be able to farm rares and try to get cool items from around the new zones. This is likely when the first weekly quest is going to open, which in Dragonflight at least had some pretty nice rewards if you waited until you had a little bit of item level. That was another thing in Dragonflight. A lot of the random drops scaled up based on your item level. So if there was a rare that dropped a weapon, for example, and you came back a couple days later with maybe 5 more item levels on your character, you would have a chance to get that weapon at an even higher item level. So you may want to be spending some time each day on your main character going around and farming rares. I want to emphasize that none of this is actually going to be really that important in the grand scheme of things. All of the gear that you get in this phase is going to very quickly be replaced once Heroic Week and Mythic 0 dungeons open. But this is just a thing that you can do to increase your character power. I personally find this stuff really, really fun to lean into and do, but it's definitely not for everybody, and it's definitely not something that's going to be required in order to play in later stages of the War Within. So the main things that I would be focusing on in this stage would be gearing up my characters through heroic dungeons, and then clearing out all of the weekly content and the world quest content that's going to be available. If you want to spend some time doing rares or doing delves or any of that sort of stuff, that will be available, but that is certainly not required, and it's not the first thing that I would prioritize during this stage. 2 weeks after the full release, on September 10th or September 11th if you're in the EU, we will have Heroic Week. This is something that's returning that we didn't have in Dragonflight, but that had always been a thing in previous expansions. We will have a week of raid where only normal and heroic modes are available. There will be no mythic raid. In addition to this, Mythic Plus dungeons will not be open. Mythic 0 dungeons will be open, and one thing that's important to note is that they have been changed to a daily lockout in the War Within, so they are not a weekly lockout any longer. You can do these Mythic 0 dungeons once per day. These will be the seasonal dungeons. At this point, the heroic dungeon pool will also convert to the seasonal dungeon pool. This is a major change from Dragonflight, where we had just the 8 Dragonflight dungeons for the entirety of the expansion. For all 4 seasons of Dragonflight. In the War Within, we will be having the seasonal dungeons for Heroic, Mythic 0, and Mythic Plus once the seasons begin. Additionally, Mythic 0 dungeons will be dropping Veteran track gear. It should be dropping at 4 out of 8 upgrade level, but this is a little bit down from in Dragonflight right now, where it drops at Champion track. This is a trade-off because you will be able to farm these every day in the War Within as opposed to once a week in Dragonflight and earlier. The things that I would prioritize in this stage of the expansion launch and release in Season 1 beginning would be clearing as much of the raid as you can on your characters, with Mythic 0 gear only dropping up to Veteran track. Normal and Heroic raid gear are going to be even more valuable than they have been in the past for the purposes of gearing up your character early on. And I would really try to do as much of the Mythic dungeons as you can every day. If you have a chance to run all 8 dungeons for the first few days, this could be a good way to really round out your character's gear and fill in the gaps that you're going to have, because you're probably not going to get fully raid geared from just one clear. In addition to that, there may be some value in doing some of the open world content. The weekly quest is probably still going to offer you a decent reward at the end of it. You will be able to get some good rewards from the delve system at this point by going up to a level 8 delve, and if you have the keys that allow you to unlock the bountiful chests at the end of delves, you can get a good item from those, from what I've heard, once per day. So that may be worth looking into and pursuing. But this will be a little bit of a lighter week compared to what we're used to, because there won't be any Mythic Plus open. One last thing that I want to say is going to be very valuable for this week is going to be filling up every slot on your vault. This will be the first week that we will be able to get tier pieces from our vault. After this week, and having all 9 slots unlocked will give you the highest chances of getting a tier item, which will be really nice early in the season. The tier sets in Season 1 of the War Within are not as powerful as any of the tier sets in Dragonflight, but it'll be valuable to get those pieces unlocked so that you can get your full set bonus and be a little bit faster on your track to having that 4-piece and really maximizing your character's power. The following week, September 17th, everything is going to be unlocked. Mythic Raid will unlock, some of the LFR wings will be open. I don't know exactly what the cadence on that is. And more importantly, for the purposes of my content, Mythic Plus dungeons will be unlocking. One thing that I want to note, and maybe I'll make a video talking about this in a little more detail, but there's a lot of info out there already. Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be really hard this season, especially early on when our gear is not good. The changes that have been made compared to Dragonflight Season 1, when we started in Dragonflight Season 1 with +2 keystones, that difficulty no longer exists. The +2 key that you're going to get at the start of the War Within Season 1 is going to be equivalent in tuning, though not affix difficulty, to a +10 or 11, maybe even 12 at the start of Dragonflight. And if you tried pushing keys earlier in Dragonflight, you remember how hard those keys were and how hard these keys will be on day 1. Now that doesn't mean groups are going to be depleting every key until you struggle it out and get some end of dungeon rewards, but just be prepared that these are not going to be the face roll 2s that you may be used to if you played early in Dragonflight or Shadowlands or even BFA and Legion. As we said at the beginning of the video, the expansion is almost upon us now. It is just hours away. So I look forward to seeing you guys all on stream. I'm going to be streaming probably every night for a while, including some daytime streams. So I'll be posting a schedule on my Discord if you want to check that out so you can hang out with us. I hope you'll have great adventures as we head into the War Within. If you made it this far in the video, please consider giving us a like and a subscribe here on the channel. We're going to continue to put out the War Within content as we get into the expansion and as things unfold and we learn about new things each day. But until next time, farewell, my friends.